Well, good evening. Or actually, it's morning here. It's just after midnight, around 12:30 in the morning, on a Tuesday morning in May of 2025. Um, I want to talk to you about the organization of Subud. Um, let's just talk first about some general history. Now we know a lot of stuff at this point. We have a lot of information about. We have some, it's all relative. We have some information about Subud before it came to the West. I guess in 1944, some people were opened. 47, it kind of spread to a few towns, a few hundred people in Indonesia. We hear Bapak saying that some of these people were not able to continue. He said probably because the demands that their inner made on them, they couldn't. They were unwilling to acquiesce to those demands, the demands of their soul. And we also know things about what happened in the West. In the West, there was a wonderful response to Subud, and we were all quite happy there for maybe 10 or 15 years. Pretty happy. We were going to have enterprises. We were going to do this and we were going to do that, and very little of that has actually happened. So it's certainly something that needs to be addressed, discussed. We need to figure out if there's something we're doing wrong. We need to figure out how to correct our mistakes and go on so that we can have a better chance of having some kind of success in the future. Now, we could split hairs about what success means, but in general, we can just use our common sense and say, well, yeah, if we had some viable enterprises, we had people coming into Subud. Subud was a pretty, the organization I'm speaking of was a pretty good, a fun place to be a part of and so on. We were growing. Well, then we could say, yeah, we're having some success. Things are coming along pretty well. Let's just leave it at that. Let's not get into the weeds too much. So there's some interesting things because we know that we need to know something about the messenger who brought the gift. The gift itself is something we also, of course, over time we understand more about it in a finer way. We understand things about it. And generally, we also see that our understanding is not really complete, or is a long way from being complete. We don't really. There's so many things when you're on the earth. You just can't see it all. You can't understand it. Completely. You can understand enough to be at peace with yourself, and that's pretty much a necessary thing. You can't be divided against yourself in life. I mean, not for a long period of time. Anyway, so we know some interesting things. We know that in Indonesia, where the messenger came from, Subi, or as you like to call him, Bapak, they were ruled for a very long time by the Dutch. Became independent rather late in the day by Western standards, and so therefore we can surmise that they were still kind of youthful or young just still learning about being independent. And whether they succeed at being independent or not, of course, is another whole area of things. But we do know that in our terms from the West, that they were pretty laid back about things, pretty casual about things. I mean, in terms of getting things organized and stuff, they didn't have a name for a long time. They just come and meet and sort of agree verbally on things. I'm not sure how much they had down on paper, records, and so on. From all we can surmise, some people were very much taken by this gift and very much involved in it, completely involved in it, and others were less enthusiastic. Quite a few didn't stay for too long. They came in for a while and left. But also, what's interesting is, do they have a successful organization in Indonesia? Is it thriving and growing? I hope it is. I don't know that it is. I don't hear things, particularly, wow, Subud is really growing in Indonesia, or Subud has established this and that in Indonesia. So it's kind of up in the air from where my knowledge is. What I have a general idea, and I could be very wrong, that they're doing pretty good, relatively speaking. But as I say, I keep coming back to this point, trying to say this. It's interesting that none of their enterprises, there's some, the charitable enterprise. There's a few enterprises that perhaps in Indonesia were successful, but the grand ones, the bank, the sugar factory, a lot of the big things just never happened, and a lot of energy was poured into the bank, particularly from all over the world, and then it turned on some silly regulations that Indonesia had that apparently the brilliant minds of Subud over there were unable to figure out before we had spent a lot of time basically making a big edifice on a property that we didn't own. So that was a big blow. Here in the West, I don't know, you'd have to tell me, are there successful Subud enterprises? Certainly nothing that I've heard very much about. So we have a kind of situation where Subud itself it's hard to organize it. It's hard to get it going in the right direction, and of course, common sense will tell you some reasons for that. Some of the reasons are that, obviously, you have all kinds of different people, young, old, rich, poor, smart and stupid, nice and not nice, socially adept and socially isolated. I mean, every sort of person, because the gift, as Subi said, is offered to anyone at all. Criminal, bad person, good person, atheist, Jew, Muslim, Christian, kind of a non-religious person, anyone, black, white, red, yellow, or brown, race, whatever. There's no restriction. Poor as dirt, rich as whatever, doesn't matter. Famous, completely unknown. I mean, just anyone. Think of it. And it doesn't cost anything. It's free. So just a whole bunch of stuff to deal with. Now, I'm dealing specifically with the area that I know the most about, which is the West. By the West, I mean, of course, Australia, Hawaii, United States, Canada, South America, Northern Europe, by north I mean let's go down to Spain and let's stop there. Well, let's go down to Italy and let's stop there. And of course there's large groups of other people in different, but the cultures are sufficiently different, but the Western cultures I know something about, so I can address our issues. What distinguishes us from the Indonesian, the Eastern culture? How different is it, and what difference does that make? Well, in general, the West has gotten itself into a pretty good-sized effort to have representative governments where people vote for things and choose their leaders, and that's what we've been striving for that for a very long time. How well we've succeeded in that is certainly an open question, but that's what we have succeeded. We've had a lot of representative government over the centuries, the last few centuries. And I think we generally had quite a bit of fun with that. We like that. That's the way we want to go. Well, so now this isn't just spiritual. It isn't just an organizational thing. It's also a kind of a spiritual thing. It has to do with equality. We consider that a being created by the one Almighty God is equal. That God loves all of His creation, and therefore we need to love it as well, and be part of the rights on the right side of things. We need to respect His creation. Any person, any ant, any tree, we need to respect it all. We need to be able to hopefully to grow or to empathize or to sense the wonder of the ant and the marvelous pianist and the simple farm worker, and on and on. We respect them all. So that's kind of how we roll. We like to kind of have, we like things to be done so that they become successful. In other words, we like to have an organization, for instance, where this very talented person who's very much into into what they're doing, running the thing, a person who's also loving and kind, who just knows what to do and just knows, okay, this will work in that morning, and avoids failure, does successful things. And we found over the many, many years that there's lots of, amazing things that people can do. It comes to mind some guy up in Washington, I think it was, in Washington, the state of Washington, who had some sort of business. He had quite a bit of money himself, and he just equalized everything, gave everybody an equal salary, which I think he took as well. And they proceeded on, and they've done well. They've been able to kind of not have a hierarchical kind of thing, and they've done well. And we've had evidence. I don't know if you've ever been to a co-op. There's something wonderful about a co-op. People working together, cooperating together, and so on and so forth. All having a similar goal to do what? To nurture the community, to nurture themselves and their neighbors. All things which the messengers of God from the past would approve of and would be happy about. Although, there is a caveat, as Christ said, first seek the kingdom of God and then everything else will be added unto you. So if you forget about God while you're doing this, it takes on a kind of a tilted, it doesn't work the same, and most likely, in the end will not bear good fruit. I would say, I don't know, I can't be have much of any weight to say about that. But that's what I found that in my own life, Cooperate, treat people like you'd like to be treated. That's your best shot there. Try to be as, as loving and as kind as you can. Anyway, coming back to the organization of Subud, well, Subi understood that we were different cultures, that we walked differently, that we did. Remember, he used to do testing about it. How does a German walk? How does somebody else sing, or how do they talk? And, he did testing with it. It was quite fun. And we laughed because you thought, yeah, that's true. That's how it is. Germans walk different from English people, and so on. Everyone is influenced by their own culture. Okay, so speaking of the influence of our own cultures, then each country has a culture, and those countries have customs. They have their norms, the way they do things. Here we watch videos, and so on. And we use a lot of technology to do things. We're enamored of technology at the moment. Most of the populace is. So, what does all this have to do with the organization of Subud? Well, when Subi brought Subud to the west, Sri Lanka and then Coach Springs, we were at that point in time, which he mentioned later on, where in the beginning, the first being of this generation has gone on for some 50,000 years or so, was started out being really very intelligent, inwardly very pure, very clean, being guided by God. But outwardly, just really stupid. Just not knowing anything about anything here, the rocks, the trees. It's a fearsome place. And you have to scurry around pretty good, I would imagine, to get, even in the beginning it must have been a struggle. But God was showing them, taking them places where there was sufficient food, fruit on the trees, so on and so forth, and places where they could shelter and be safe from, big animals and beasts and things. So we can't imagine that it was that rough in the beginning. We don't know. We weren't there. It was probably pretty nice. But so over time, we have changed though, because we got so wrapped up in the world that we became very knowledge-centric in terms of the world, the physical world, the world that we live in. And ourselves and our psychology and everything about us and this and our that and everything, but kind of drifting away from the part of it where God was guiding us. So that according to Subi, and it makes perfect sense to me, I'd have to say, yeah, that's true, inwardly I'm telling you, yeah, that's it, that's how it is. A man started out being very, very, very smart inwardly and very dumb outwardly, but now it's reversed over the 50,000 years. Now he's very dumb inwardly and he's very smart outwardly. He's just focusing on that. It's just like me. I mean, if you want to ask me about computers, I only go so far because I wasn't that interested in computers. I was interested in people. So I can go up to a point with it, up a normal standard. But then after that, I don't really know. I don't have the intelligence, operating intelligence, about those things that quite a few people do who are much more interested in it than I am. And so the same thing happened with us in terms of inner intelligence. Well, let's just talk for a minute about what it means to be inwardly stupid. Well, I'm not really sure what to do, but I'm not really sure what to do. Maybe somebody else knows what to do. But I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. What will I do? Okay, that's a kind of a demonstration of inward stupidity. Moronic kind of, what is the guy, can he even think? Inwardly, can he even kind of have intelligence? So what does inner intelligence look like? Go to God, worship God, be part of God. Allah, yeah. That would be an example of inner intelligence. So, when it came to the matter of organizing ourselves, we gave evidence of our moronic inner nature, inner position where we were, because even though we were called to Subud, we were still in pretty much the same boat as everybody else. We were inwardly stupid. So when it came to doing things, and then we were trying to do things from an inner point of view, so that it's rather humorous because we tried to run our organization, but with the guidance of God, from an inner standpoint. And sure enough, we were very stupid. So instead of saying things like, "Well, let's organize," we have to be very careful and organize so that and do things so that we don't put off the people, and it accommodates people and it's fair to everyone and aligns up with our norms and our culture. Doesn't put is something a normal person could say, yeah, that's good, we like that. It's like we like hamburgers, Subud could be kind of like the hamburger of the Western culture. Sure, everybody likes hamburgers, pretty much, A normal person will accept, will be happy to go and get a good hamburger. So this is kind of the standard that we would need to aim for. Maybe we wouldn't quite make it, but maybe we could get close to it, or maybe we would be able to make it. So we would have a regular organization, make it pretty easy to get in, be pretty open-minded, loving, kind toward new people coming in, not making a lot of judgments or do all kinds of things that we could go on and on about, which don't cause plants to grow, they cause them to die. And then the big question was, well, I mean, now we're going to have a spiritual organization that's a normal organization, and yet it's spiritual. How can we do that? How could we do that? Well, that's impossible. So they went, that's the moron speaking. Has some inner intelligence working. Well, you have people vote on things, but the thing is, when they vote, they wait until they're moved to vote, and that way they'll be guided by God. They'll be moved by God when they vote. So that will bring the guidance of God into the voting. And it won't appear that different from any other voting. Just maybe a few seconds you're waiting or whatever until you're moved. But it will actually be, the source of it will be completely different from the way people normally vote on basis on their passions, their thoughts, their interests, and so on and so forth. No, it would be coming from from the guidance of God that was moving them. So that would be perfect. So yeah, let's do that. But that thing never came up. Efforts were made to get people to vote, but then it all went south, and then and people hadn't yet reached a point of intelligence where they would realize that they needed to be guided to vote, moved to vote. Otherwise, the vote wouldn't be coming from the guidance of God. It would be coming from some other place. That would not be what we want. We want to we want to be guided by God. Then there were also, it turns out, a lot of people who are so stupid and inwardly, or that they still, after decades, they still can't say that there's a God. Well, I don't know, I'm moved, but I don't know where it comes from. I mean, it could come from anywhere. I don't know what it is. That's pretty stupid. It's like saying your mother took care of you, and you're going, well, I don't know if she did. I mean, she was there, sure, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, who took care of me? Didn't I take care of myself? I mean, my gosh. Whereas when you approach this kind of thing with some kind of inner intelligence, it's like, God is great, God is good. God created you. Obey Allah, obey God. Do as God guides you to do, and you will have a happy life, a good life. It's that simple. I still have a lot of people who got open were still so stupid that they never were able to grasp this. Oh, I'm still not sure, Still don't know for sure after 60 years, 50 years. So yeah, I mean, what Subi said about us being pretty stupid inwardly, very stupid inwardly, was quite true. We find from experience and observation. So anyway, coming back to organizing Subud, so there it was. So it appears that the dumb side won, and the stupid part of man inwardly won out in Subud. Because instead of organizing our groups so that the Danes, the Germans, the West Virginians, the Californians, and all the people from Austin, Texas, and the people from Russia had their own culture and their own thing, and they would just decide things by voting. Was never implemented. I mean, I'm sure to some degree. I know the Australians stopped and didn't do a lot of testing and had some. I've heard that they were more kind of independent and good for them. I don't know. I don't know what the condition is over there. I never got over. I tried to get over there, but the Australian government it makes it very hard to go to Australia. So we finally, it's too late. I'm not going to Australia. Makes it that. Anyway, coming back to our own situation. So I don't want to spend too much time on the dark side, but I will just say this. So that's what we need to do. We need to do that. I don't know. I mean, do you disagree? Do you think that we should have something that has a different values and customs in our own cultures? And that people will learn how to come over to that? It'll all become, like in the country now, they all become fascists. They were democratic, but now they're going to become fascists. I think that's what... They weren't really spiritual before, but now they're going to become very spiritual. I mean, they certainly tried to be spiritual. You know, innocently, in their own way. Brothers and sisters, could we please have quiet? And while we're testing, could we ask the members not to do their lottie on, you know. I don't think that's spiritual. Well, no, that's a person pretending to be spiritual. It's a person who thinks they're spiritual. It's a person who's imitating some idea they have of being spiritual. Mama was much more spiritual. Yeah, stupid. Go on, do. You know, he was a real person. And none of that stuff that, a lot of the stuff they do in the West is not real. I think the most stunning indictment of people not really, I mean, they're in Subud, but they're not actually doing the worship. It's incredibly stunning. Is that they, you know, because if you'll recall, in the early years, the Ladihan, I speak as a man, I can tell you that, you know, the Ladihan was a man. It was a great fun, and it was good. But, you know, I mean, it took some courage to go in there because there was a lot of people running around and talking with pretty loud volume and just making a lot of racket and strong gestures and all kinds of things. Of course, nobody ever got injured or anything from it. Nothing ever happened because God was guiding it. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff in the physical realm having to be purified. And, you know, as Suvi said, the physical realm has to be purified first because the body itself doesn't believe there's a God, you know, the whole thing. So it has to be shown. And so, and different things. So the first thing, there's movements manifest in the physical body, and the physical body goes like, or the physical party goes like, wow, I was moved, but not by my own volition. So there's something more than my own thing. So that's, you know, that's an important step. Well, after about 10 years or so, I don't know, I think it was it 10 years? 57, 67, somewhere, I'm not sure, somewhere between like 65 and 75 maybe. Let's say, I'm going to take a guess, 68. Subi said something to some people he was talking to, and it got reported. And what he said was, well, he said, you know, once your worship progresses, then it will become more inward, and you'll have less physical movement. so that, you know, even though inwardly you're going through a lot of things are happening, why outwardly there won't be much to see. Something to that effect. And you know, so a couple weeks passed. I was down in LA at the time doing the exercise there, and I can tell you it was a strong exercise. Some of the older people, they didn't move around very much, but the younger kids were running around the room. They'd run, they'd jump up and down on the floor, and they'd spin, run into the walls, fall down, get up, fall down again. You know, all kinds of pretty strong physical movements. But we already had something in place, which I'll talk about in a minute anyway, but we had these people, helpers. They were kind of, you know, and so once that thing came out from Subud, then a couple weeks later, not very long, a few weeks, all of a sudden, now the helpers were, when they did the exercise, they weren't having big movements anymore. Now they were all, hello, hello, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah. And so it reflected to the members, and the members, which I'll get into all this dynamic in a minute, but anyway, so the members, you know, oh gosh, there's something wrong with me, perhaps I should calm down a bit, you know, say, oh, hello, 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 oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. They imitated the helpers when the helpers weren't being true to their own exercise. He showed me a helper in the 70s who was having a violent exercise or having really strong exercise. I dare you, show me one person who was like, you know, whoa, whoa. Maybe there was some, probably was, but not very common at all. Very rare. I never saw one. I don't think I could honestly say I never. After that, well, I can tell you for a fact that that's just a lot of horse manure. That's a lot of baloney. That's not the worship of God. And the reason I know, and I can say for a fact, I stake my life on it. You know, I know it to be true. Was that I said I don't know what they're doing, but I'm going to go ahead and do the worship, which meant I would do whatever I was moved to do, regardless of how loud it was or how long it went on or whatever. It looked like I was going to run into the wall or fall on the floor, whatever it was. I would just do it because, of course, you know, God knows everything. So if you're signing up to, you can't be trying to fool the boss. And I had no wish to fool the boss. I wanted to see, you know, what this was all leading to. So I did all those things, and it went on for a very long time. And I think after 40 years, something like that. Let's see, 65 to 2005, 50 years. No, wait, 35, 40 years. After 40 years, I was living on a ranch. I was having my own exercise in the morning, one morning, and I realized, wait, what happened? Because it was mostly, you know, it was strong. It was a strong exercise, strong worship, but it was inward. It was, you know, feelings and things, but it was very inward. You know, vibes and things going on, changes and stuff. But it was inward, and I noticed afterwards. I thought to myself, you know, I didn't really hardly say anything or make hardly any movements. So my Lari Han, then my exercise had progressed after 40 years, and now I was not having. I was having an exercise where although I have to say, when I get with younger members, my exercise will become more physical. It'll be strong physically, but when I'm just by myself, it's sometimes it's verbal, but it's much more calm and so on, because that part of the thing, the physical thing, has been done, or is mostly done, or is sufficiently done that I don't need to make having these rough, violent movements. So there's a real bunch of mischief going on, because let's look at that. What's going on there? Well, now the members are imitating the helpers. The helpers are pretending they're not being full-hearted. They're thinking, well, I'd like to be like that. I'd like to be more advanced. So perhaps I am more advanced. Let me see. Oh yes, this works. Ooh, 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 ooh. And they all come out. Do they smirk at each other when they come out thinking how advanced they are? But it's just an illusion. It's a mental thing. What did Subud tell us? Don't use your mind. Your mind is always obstructing. The inner feeling is supposed to be leading the whole business here. And the mind and your heart, everything is supposed to be in the train of the inner feeling. So how you come to what the inner feeling is doing is you don't obstruct it. Whatever it does, that's what you do. I used to stand up there, and as soon as I let go, boom, I'd fall on the floor. And sometimes I fall backwards too. I can't even imagine how this all happened, but it did happen. I'd fall backwards, and I'd be okay. Somehow my hands would, just at the very last instant, would cushion me, so I didn't really get hurt. But it was because I was determined, so I'd fall. I wouldn't just put my hands out right away. I'd fall, and then it's the last thing, boom, very quick. I would stop. I would find myself being moved to stop myself, because I wanted to be sure I was being true to the worship. Okay, so coming back to what, briefly, what did happen was that we had the moron, the inner moron, kind of getting the upper hand. Whoa, we don't know what to do. Let's ask a spiritual guide. He can tell us how we should do things, because we don't know anything. He will be our leader. Okay. So now we have Subud, our spiritual guide. Really very impressive. I don't know that words can really adequately or can describe. The man would give a talk and say things and do things. It'd be so enlightening, so bring a truth to you, communicate a truth to you, just what you needed at the time. Just marvelous things. He would say. And just kind of without attracting a lot of attention to how smart he was or anything. He'd say, brothers and sisters, actually it's the will of God for man to not live in debt, or he'd tell us things like, don't be afraid of missing out, be resigned. Just follow in his talks there would be these little key things of knowledge, and if you check them up, you'd find, yeah, that's right, that really works. Don't use force. Only God is the one who forces. It's against the will of God for man to use force. A marvelous remark. If you follow it, you'll see what wonderful things that leads to if you take it up. Anywho, so what happened was the moron came to Subi and said, well, I don't know what to do. Well, what should we do? So one of the first things he said was, because, I mean, what are you going to do with the moron? Put yourself in Subi's shoes. What are you going to do with the moron? Well, you think, well, he'll know what to do. He'll have guidance. And yes, you can say, yes, he will have guidance. But won't that guidance that he has, won't it be to some degree, won't it be coming through what's in harmony or in his understanding of his culture, his Indonesian culture and everything else? Well, I'd say, no, it comes straight through his own nature. Was his own nature not affected by, I mean, he was very Indonesian. He'd love to go to those wine plays and do all kinds of Indonesian things. He was enthusiastic about it, as far as what I've heard, you could surmise. And as well, of course, he might be. We're enthusiastic about baseball, or whatever it is, or a good concert, or, going to the races. I mean, in the West we have enthusiasms. Studying at the university, starting a big business. We have all kinds of enthusiasms. So they're asking him in Indonesia to tell us in the West what we should do. Well, so what could he say? Well, he said, well, I mean, I don't know. Because it must have been a little embarrassing for him. There were these professional people, these lawyers and everything else, that are all coming in and acting like little stupid kids. Really stupid kids. So, I mean, he didn't say, well, fuck off. He was a compassionate, loving being, so he engaged. He said, well, I don't know, you have some people who have done the exercise for a while, and you can kind of have them sort of guide the new ones that are just starting out a little bit. They've done the exercise a little bit longer, until you are able to arrange your own affairs. He said that. Until you are able to arrange your own affairs. Well, guess what? We never did. 60 years have passed, and then some. 1957, 68 years I think it is. 57 to 2000, that's, 43 years. Plus 25 is 68 years. Subud has been in the West. And to this day, we have not arranged our own affairs. We still have left it at the thing where the people who had been a little bit longer could kind of look after the ones who were coming in, just for now, he said. So apparently we have not gotten out of being morons. We're still being morons. Well, I don't know. I don't know what will happen. Oh, but I think, because maybe, it's not, I don't know what's going to go on. I just don't know. I don't know anything. Oh, well, and then some of them are so moronic, they go like, oh, I don't know, maybe, I'll just, I don't know what to do. I think I don't know. And others, say, well, just have to see what happens, and see what happens, never arrange our own affairs. So there are consequences of not arranging your own affairs, as you know, because if you don't arrange your own affairs, someone else will. Someone will come and say, okay, you people over here, get over there and do the thing, and you'll have to do it because you got yourself in a position where you became vulnerable to other people telling you what to do. You had to do it. You want to survive. And that's how it is in Subud. So the consequence of allowing the first members, a short-term thing, pretty wise, yeah. Let's see, let's go out to the orchard. It's a good wisdom that Subi had. It's a good common sense thing. It's something we can understand pretty easily. John, the new worker, he's going to go out and work in the orchard. Well, let Juan or Jesus or Justine or whoever it is, will kind of show him, look after him until he gets his own 2 feet, and then he can do it himself. Now, so that's a good short-term thing, but we don't want, so then if the guy progresses and learns how to work the orchard pretty good, then he becomes less and less dependent on the older guy that knows what to do, or the more seasoned worker. And he becomes more of his equal. And if he's better at doing things in the long run, if he has more talent, well, then he becomes the one who actually ends up being the manager of the crew that runs the orchard. That's how things work in a good, equitable system. And it's successful because then he's quite talented. So it's an improvement. He's more talented than the last guy, or he has a better relationship with the workers, can get them to do more work enthusiastically and in a good way than the first guy. So let's look at, so that's short-term, long-term, short-term, long-term. Both are in there in that when I was talking. But let's look at what happens when you take all the people who were first opened. Well, you can read a lot of stories about people who were open. One of the things that's quite striking about it is there's very, very different responses and levels and things. There are quite a few people who came in were really not very enthusiastic about Subud. They thought they'd try it, and they had some pretty good experiences. There were people who came in and didn't stay long and dropped out, or there were many people who weren't interested, and so on and so forth. But the ones that did come in and stayed in, you can say, well, they're pretty enthusiastic. But now let's ask ourselves a question. Was it the will of God? Was it God's plan that he would have the very first people who came in would be like the chosen ones? They would be the ones who would run the organization forever? Or their descendants, or their whatever, their assistants they chose would, they decided by whatever means, would be the ones that ran the organization. Was that the plan? Well, it doesn't seem like that would be the plan. Why? Because people came in different conditions, and the fact that they were in one condition or another would not determine whether or not they should be coming in. God knew the truth of it. This is for this person to go in, and let's be positive for you, positive for you, positive for all these beings. It would be good for them to go and receive this contact. um, and be guided and instructed by the One Almighty. So therefore, some of the people who came in, as we know, as we have all experienced, some of them were misanthropic. Some of them really didn't care, didn't even like other people. Some of them were odd. Some of them were criminals. Some of them were not very nice. Some were nice, pretty nice, but even that, they were sometimes rather shallow. There's all kinds of people. A few of those first people were, real gems, and have probably, I don't know, I mean, they behaved well and they've been able to fulfill those duties as a helper. And even so, Subi said on more than one occasion, you're not a helper, there's no real helpers here. And then, so they became the people, that odd group. Some of the people that got open in Subud went straight to the mental hospital, and other people got crazy, and some of them, don't seem to have recovered, or they went off or something. There's all kinds of things. There's like an explosion. So these were the people that we then entrusted by not acting, by not arranging our own affairs. And how would we arrange it? We would arrange them in accordance with our own values, our own perspectives, our own guidance from God. What was in line when God would guide us in our own culture and our own ways, in harmony with our life. He wouldn't be guiding us to go and play soccer. If we were from the United States, he'd be guiding us to, play football or play baseball or something like that. Follow my drift. Okay, so now what? So that's what happened. And then it continued. The moronic nature of it continued. And then there was a very odd thing that got into play, and that was, as we learned later about Javanese culture, the Javanese are very, very careful about hurting other people's feelings, causing offense, and things like that. You can see this if you read Srila Bodhidharma. He's often saying, there's no need to reproach these people for doing this because they were under the sway of some force or something. And so when he came to the West, he applied, but it looks like he applied those same cultural norms that he had in Java to, he's very reticent to every now and then he makes a little remark, but you still haven't seemed to progress very much, he'd say. But then, just before he died, a few talks, final talks, he comes out and he makes this kind of strong statement, Babak is the only one. He'd become so disillusioned, I guess. Babak is the only one. Babak is the only pioneer. Well, I don't think that's true. I think I'm a pioneer, and I'm sure there are other people who feel that. But he was distraught. Is it true what he said? No, it's not true. Several people have gone into the Lanyan, into the worship pretty deeply. I happen to be one of those people. I've gone 100. I've gone just as far as my capacity. There's only so far you can go, but I push those limits pretty good. Sometimes I'm really scared myself. And as he said, because God arranged it so that you can go pretty deep, dive pretty deep into the inner realities, and God allows you to look around and see. But anyway, so at the end of his life, he came out and he said, you're not doing it. You're not doing it. As loving as he was, and as much as he was loved, he still came out and said that. You're not doing it. I remember his famous talk there at the end where he was saying, it's as if you're being chased by demons and beasts or, whatever stuff across this field. And ahead of you is a small chasm, and across from that chasm is there's a space there. And across there is a paradise. It's beautiful there. It's wonderful there. And he says, all you have to do is jump up a little bit. They're handing you a rope. So all you have to do is jump up, grab that rope, and it'll swing you across. So all you have to do is jump up and do it. He said, but you won't do it. You won't do it. You don't do it. So then if you don't do it, I guess you get eaten by the beast, or I don't know what happens to you, but no. So it's a predicament. It reaches that level of things, kind of a predicament. Our brothers and sisters, it's a mess. So what has been the result of all of this? Having these people who really would become helpers and then would misbehave and wouldn't treat people badly, and they just remained helpers. What has happened with people who didn't really do the worship, were doing testing and held back, and were kind of posturing as spiritual people? It's the will of God for us to receive how it would be for Jay Jinden to be the chairman of Subud Seattle. Please receive, that's what they consider to be a valid test. Is the test coming from their inner being? Are they receiving the test in their own language? In order to speak your own language, to receive in your own language, you must first be retaught how to speak. One of the first things that you learn in speaking is you learn your alphabet. Author, absolute, antiquated, ancestor, Allah, always, begin. You learn your A's, you learn your F's, fine, female, frustrated, furious, fantastic, funny, fumigate, frustrate, friend, fried, fermenting, for first Allah. You may do learn your alphabet and you repeat it, just as you do in school, over quite a few times. Then you get through the S. Then when you have learned your alphabet, then you can form it into words. You can say words that are coming from your inner receiving. For example, let's say if I was going to test something, I wouldn't direct myself, I would surrender to God. Why do you not receive? receive. You don't know how to. Subi said that the receiving tool that we have is a form of, it's like a toy. It's not the real receiving tool. I'm not going to go there right now about that. And I don't know much about it, but I mean, I could learn about it by going there, but I'm not going to. But anyway, so in the testing, it's very different from how you test. You know, let's say you have a woman who you're considering her to be chairman. She's volunteered, she's raised her, and she'd like to be chairman. You have a list of people. Let's say her name is Margaret Thatcher. We're going to test about Margaret Thatcher being... Well, we don't follow our reason or rationality, because as Sufi said, these are subordinate forces. That's not what we follow. We follow the inner direction, the inner guidance. So our first question is, how old is Margaret Thatcher? And the answer is, she's not old enough to be the chairman. And that's your answer. And suppose you get all posturing and you get all spiritual. Say, what is the will of God for us to receive? How would it be for Margaret Thatcher to be president? Well, depending on which forces are operating in your system, it would be good. It would be good for Margaret. It would be good for Margaret to be chairman. You can get that. Completely different than the first set of testing. Why would you get an answer like that? Well, you know, after you're faced with testing for a while, you go through the hoops with testing. Some of you realize, and you know, you should all realize this. I think that, you know, testing is source to source to a large degree. So the source of the question they asked about Margaret Thatcher is coming from, we don't really want to know the truth. We're just pretending to be spiritual. And so the answer comes back, since you're not willing to know the truth, then I'll give you the false answer, which is yes, you'd be good. As Christ said, as you ask, so you shall, you know, the source of your asking will be how you are answered. So, of course, with all this spiritual posturing, there's been a ton of this kind of misleading testing and receiving. And, but you know, it's always fun to do the worship, and so people were just ecstatic about, oh yes, we received Bob, would be great, Bob is our man. So you have gone on and done this, and so the real talented people, the people who are really, at that time, were supposed to be doing that work, are ignored, left out. They don't get the job. Every now and then, one of them does, and it's great. But by and large, they didn't. So how do you assess the success of an organization? Well, you can do it in a kind of moronic way, because well, nobody knows what real success is. God knows the truth. God knows what real, I mean, it could be anything, you know. We don't really know. But a more intelligent, inwardly more intelligent, I think would be, well, what were the fruits? What happened? Did you start enterprises? Did you grow? Did the communities that you live in accept you? Are people in the group happy? Is there non-abusive atmosphere? Is there love and kindness? Are people graceful with each other? Do they help each other? Do they support each other? Have you started businesses together? Of course, there have been times when these things did happen, but pretty much in this atmosphere of having helpers and the so-called helpers, who, as should be said, aren't real helpers, do the testing and so on, which isn't really testing. Well, of course, you get, a nightmare is what you get, and that's what we got. So now we're facing this nightmare where we started out with 1 million people. Now we're down to, I don't know, on the books, 30,000. Are there 30,000? Maybe there's a little more, a little less, I don't really know. But not a lot of people in the world. I'm not just talking in the United States, I'm talking in the world. There's only 30,000 people left. The older members are dying, are mostly dead. All those people that were with Subi. I have a friend, Rashad Tarantino, he's 93. He's still ticking along pretty good. But, he tells me all of his friends are all dead. They're all gone. So that first generation is mostly gone. The groups, so they sell their houses. I mean, is this success? And I think one of the, I'm not going to go, there are quite a few things that are signs, pretty clear signs of how things have kind of gotten off track. So all these things have to be corrected. So now that you know, if you want to know whether I'm telling you the truth or there's anything to what I'm saying, all you have to do is just check in your inner. So is he telling the truth? Is this true? Yeah, that's it. Your inner will tell you. I'm not making things up. I'm, following the guidance of God as much as I know how to do it. And I have lots of experience doing it because I've been doing it for a very long time and I've made efforts to do it, so of course I've made mistakes. But over time, I've learned how to follow, probably 80% or something. I learned how to follow the guidance of God, so yeah, I'm telling you the truth, up to the point that we're able to comprehend the truth. Subi said, only God knows the truth. You can't know the truth, he said. Yeah. So I hope this has been elucidating, has been educational, has been fruitful for you, and that you will take it up. You will understand. You will come to some understanding. And if you don't understand it, you can write to me at Lambert Loret. My normal Subud name, which I wish I was still using, was Lupamon, but I stopped using it. I'm still Lupamon Loret. The few people who still know me in Subud might know that name. Anyway, you can write me at Lambert Loret, LOREGGE @gmail.com, or you can call me at 66. I won't give my phone number out. You can email me, and then I can give you my phone number, and we can chat on WhatsApp. I like to talk to people face to face. And perhaps we can cooperate or help each other to correct our mistakes that we've made. brothers and sisters, if you had a big hole in the bucket, the water is just going to pour through until you say, oh, wow, let's fix the hole in the bucket. Let's stop pouring water in there and let's fix it. And when it gets fixed, it'll hold the water. Okay, so that's hopefully something that I'm able to, some of you are able to hear this in a normal way, and have some, and can agree and decide, take action, be proactive, and do something about correcting our mistakes. We can do it as a group of people, you can do it, that's the best way. But you can also do it on your own, you're free to do whatever you like with it, but please, sincerely consider it, and I would suggest that you ask your inner, is what I'm telling you true? And if it is, yeah. But don't do a test about it. Is what Lipman is saying, is that correct? No, that's not really the truth. He doesn't know what he's talking about, see? Why is that? Because the question you're asking isn't coming from the inner. It's like, we don't want to know the truth. We don't want to know the truth. And the answer is, well, since you don't want to know the truth, no, I'll tell you no. I'll give you the false answer. Yeah, it's a real thing. Subud is a marvelous, marvelous thing. Absolutely, incredibly fantastic. Beyond, you can't really, express. As if you can express to someone. It's wow, that's the best. Anywho, so write me an email. Let's get started correcting our own mistakes.